Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. I am your humble host, Mr. David Null, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers. And on this Monday, I'm sorry, trying to skip a month ahead, March the 4th, I think it is, 2019. So I greet you with the blessings of the infinite creator. And I continue to pray that each and every one of you and your family members will continue to accept and receive the healings and the blessings from the universe. Now, in my series of discussions about shaman basics and so forth, I find it interesting that I got kind of um, sideswiped today, if you will, in that this particular discussion needed to have been done for quite a while, I realized, but for some reason it hadn't settled out in my mind. And now some certain things have come to light where I honestly need to have this conversation for people for safety reasons and for clarification and so forth like that. And it has to do very simply what the difference is between a ceremony and a ritual. Now, it can be absolutely very, very, very confusing. All right. So let me start to confuse you. In my Native American heritage and what I've been able to glean, learn, achieve, be taught, etc., through the shamans and folks that I've known in this particular area, ceremonies may have ritual events. And a ritual is something that you do over and over again. So it might be, for example, when I discuss that, when you do a ceremony, that, a good ceremony, you protect yourself in a circle. All right. That could be part of the ritual of the ceremony, but not the ceremony. The fact that you would acknowledge the east and the south and the west and the north, the above and the below and the inside, that you acknowledge these areas of the universe. In that way, it is ritualistic in that you follow a pattern, but in itself, it is not a ritual. Okay. Because you do something because it works for whatever reason. And in the blessings to all of the corners of the universe, north, south, east, and west, up and below and within inside. So they're not just four corners, there are seven, up, down, and inside. And so many people don't understand that, but it's basically, quote, the ritual of blessing. Now, in that, a shaman or a medicine man or whoever is usually in a very clear state of mind, normally. I mean, a lot of times in some of the things that I've been a part of, you just know that you got to fast and try to keep yourself as clean as possible a day or two, or maybe even longer, depending on what the ceremony is that you wish to do. Now, there are full moon ceremonies that some people would say, well, if you do it on a full moon, isn't that a ritual? In a way, it is, because in following patterns, as a ritual would do, it's a full moon. So you would do a full moon ceremony, not necessarily the same ceremony, but you would use the ritual. I'm throwing this in there a little bit to kind of get you accustomed where I'm headed with this. The ritual is using the full moon for a ceremony, not that you're going to ritualize the moon every time. I know that it may be confusing with this, but I'm going to try to sort it out. Now, I looked up on Wikipedia, and I'm going to, I can't share the screen with you. I'm sorry, but I just went to Wikipedia and typed in ritual, and this is what it gave me. So you can do the same thing. A ritual is a sequence of activities involving gestures, words, and objects performed in a sequestered place, meaning a church, or maybe it's a glen, maybe it's a clearing in the woods, or maybe it's a place in your house. But it's performed according to a set sequence. Rituals may be prescribed by the traditions of a community, including a religious community. Rituals are characterized but not defined by formalism, traditionalism, invariance, rule governance, sacral symbolism, and performance. That's a little that's kind of confusing right there. But anyway, rituals are a feature of all known human societies. They include not only the worship rites and sacraments of organized religions and cults, but also rites of passage, atonement, and purification rites, oath of allegiance, dedication ceremonies. Now, they throw this in here, ceremony, at the end of speaking about rites. So, ceremonies are definitely a part, rituals are definitely a part of ceremonies, a dedication ceremony, a coming of age ceremony or rites, coronations, presidential inaugurations, marriages, funerals, and graduations, etc. So there are a lot of traditions. I mean, many activities that are ostensibly performed for concrete purposes, such as jury trials, execution of criminals, and scientific symposia, are loaded with purely symbolic actions prescribed by regulations or tradition, thus partially ritualistic in nature. Even common actions like handshaking and say hello may be termed as a ritual. The field of ritual studies has been a number of conflicting definitions on the term. Uh, anyway, we'll leave it at that. For you can read more if you wish to about ritual. Now, so it says, that the ritual can be part of a ceremony. So the ritual of marriage, for example, is that, you got to have two witnesses. You got to have a preacher or somebody to do the thingy, some magistrate or judge or whatever. And that, quote, in big weddings, the lady wears a garter, and there's this, and there's a something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, or whatever it is. There's a bridesmaid, and the groom has a best man. So all these are parts of the ritual that is the ceremony of marriage. Now, the ritual is that you do these certain things, or, it's customary, it's traditional. Okay. Now, if you're performing just a ceremony that is a shaman type of ceremony, you may follow certain ritualistic type of things. For example, you use sage to smudge. You have a favorite healing crystal. So these things become part of your ritual for the ceremony. Now, I'm stating this and I'm discussing ceremonies at the moment because in a moment I'm going to flip over and say, okay, let's go into what true rituals can mean, as into some type of Luciferian or satanic ritual. They very seldom do you ever watch, hear, or read anything that says, "Well, the Satans had a ceremony the other day." No, the Satanists had a ritual the other day, and you say, "Well, Well, in that there could be a ceremony of a blood sacrifice or some other kind of weird thing, but that it is a ritual because they follow a certain pattern all the way through. You don't want to deviate from that particular type of ritual. Now, in a ceremony can vary. If it's a full moon ceremony, the shaman or the person in it may not have sage to bless with. It might have sweetgrass. Might live in Florida and use pine needles or something. But to the point that there would be the ritual of using something with smoke to clean, cleanse, and otherwise chase away bad spirits, and to bless the place where your ceremony would take place. Now, I was taught by several different shamans, and one of them said, I said, uh, the words you're saying, and he was like, let me let you in on a secret. A ceremony or a song, if you will, if it's sung, is that prayer that you wish. And I was like, what you talking about, Willis? And he told me, he said that there are old words, there are old verses, there are old things that shamans will repeat. But many shamans use what's in their heart as the speech for the ceremony. So they use ritualistic things. They got their flute, they got their drum, they got their sage, they got their circle, but that's about where it ends, because then the prayer begins with the shaman and what the shaman is seeking. It's his prayer to the other side, to the universe. Whereas a ritual, you stick right straight through the book all the way to the end. You don't deviate, because then you'd mess up the ritual. And interestingly enough, Wikipedia uses the Catholic Church that I was raised in as one religion that is very ritualistic. And I've been talking about this for a long time. If folks knew how close the Catholic Church was to some other types of dark magic and things, they would quit going to the Catholic Church. But you got to do your homework on that one. But to the point, though, I find it interesting that the folks who do Wikipedia didn't use some other obscure religion. They used the Catholic religion as like the number one choice as an example of rituals in religion. I just have to sit back and go, that's interesting. That Wikipedia would agree that the Catholic Church is one of the most ritualistic groups. And during their rituals, they perform ceremonies. The ceremony of blessing the chalice, the ceremony of blessing the wine and the water. There are ceremonies within the ritual of the Mass. So even in the Mass, it is referred to as ritual even by Catholics. And it's like, what you talking about, Willis? Now, in my shaman training, there is a distinct difference, very much so. And it has to do with that the shaman has the special prayer. He uses all of these ritual devices to help him to achieve a certain amount of protection, blessing, honor among the spirits as he sings his song or her song to the universe in the prayer of the ceremony. I've never witnessed a ritual with any Native American of any tribe, any shaman, any medicine man, anything. Now, they use bells, they use different things in the ceremony, which is very ritualistic to them. In other words, they use the bells because it helps to call the spirits. It helps to bring energy into. They use the drum because it's the heartbeat of Mother Earth. So everything is done with a humbleness. So there is a ritual in that. They use this, they sing, they dance, they use but that's where the ritual part of it ends. The ceremony resides within the individuals and the shamans. Now, there may be a commonality between the shamans and the traditions of shamans, but it is not ritualistic, much like the Catholic Church is. Okay, look on Wikipedia. I didn't bring this up, they did. But to the point, I agree. If you knew what the priest had to do before he ever walked on stage onto the altar, he's doing all these prayers back. And I say backstage because basically, I've worked theater, and to me, it's backstage. But the priest is putting all these different vestments on. Each one gets a prayer. He has to kiss them all and then put them on in a certain order. And then he has to do with this. So there's all these rituals before you ever see the priest before Mass. And then he comes out and he's regal and he does his thing, blah, blah, blah. And all of these things are the rituals. The genuflection, at certain quote ceremonies, they use incense, not all the time. So it is a part of the ritual tradition of Catholics, but at the same time, it's not part of every Mass. Now, but there are candles lit. The number is important. There's always 2 at least, not counting side altars. There are also lots of other things that people, unless you were an altar boy or worked on the altar or with the priest, and I don't mean being bent over, but as an altar boy, you understand there is a lot of stuff that goes into this thing. What a lot of people don't understand is like, I couldn't figure out a long time ago at Most Holy Redeemer, there was this little square in the top of the altar, and there's this little stone or something. It's always covered and everything. And I was like, "What's that?" And they said it's a relic. And then I found out in 1970 from my draft deacon instructor, Sister Helene from Tampa Catholic, that that was actually possibly the bone of a saint. Now I'm like, wait a minute. They're saying a prayer over the bone of a saint. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's witchcraft and stuff. Well, it's part of the transformation and the trans thingy, and it's actually kind of really creepy. You've got the bone of a saint encased in a little piece of rock, and you've got it on the altar. How many people out in the audience know that we're praying over the bones of a saint? Well, but isn't that, well, that's, and everybody makes up this excuse. That's what Satanists and pagans do. Yeah. Well, I'm not pagans. Excuse me. Let me throw that one out. That's what a lot of people think pagans do. Now, a true pagan would never sacrifice anything, because a true pagan means that they understand the power of the earth and of the universe, much like many shamans. And uh, pick a native, and I don't mean just North America, but pick an indigenous native tribe. They have things that the pagans do, and they're all basically earthbound. They never worship anything, but they adore the moon, the sun for what it does. They adore the seasons. They give thanks and honor to the spirits. And people say, oh, they're worshiping the sun. No, they're thanking it that, oh my God, it came up again. Where there are true sun worshipers and who will do sacrifices. But a true pagan doesn't sacrifice anything. Makes offering of rice, maybe cheese or this or that. They make offerings of things, but they don't make sacrifices. So there's a lot of stuff that people over the thousands of years have been tricked into believing. Now, there are some paganists who are basically kind of witches, sorcerers, and stuff, and they have dabbled in the dark side. I'm not talking about them folks, not quite sure where they fit. But anybody who wishes to control another person is not of the true light. If you went to a shaman and said, listen, I need help. This woman, I really want her to love me, but she won't. And I want you to help intervene. That's a no-no. But there are spells and incantations and things that Wiccans and folks do. And you got to stop and think about what that law, that universal law is. Do no harm to any other being. Well, if you've met another person and it's not clicking, you love them, but they don't, but you want to try to control them. You want them to hope that they wish for you more, that they will somehow see something in you or whatever. And so the spell or the incantation or the wish or whatever it is you want to call it in the Wiccan kind of terminology, it's like, well, we're going to wish for this person to love me, that we're going to wish for this person to notice me. And it's like, wait a minute, maybe there's something inside of you that other person doesn't like. In my realm, you would wish that you would learn what that other person would like, so that maybe on your own you would be attractive from that other person. You already are, but they're not. There's not a reciprocal. And so it may be that if you, in my world, you say a prayer that if it's possible, let me allow myself to clear my spirit so that this other person can truly see who I am. Now, here's the trick. If you try to force it, which is, light a candle, say a little thing, blah, 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 and you're trying to force the issue, that should never, ever, never be done. And a true shaman will understand that and say, I'm sorry, that's bad magic. That's bad juju. There's no way that I'm going to work my, quote, powers or wisdom, whatever, into trying to control someone else. It's bad juju. You just don't do it. You put dark spots on your soul in a heartbeat. So that's something you absolutely do not do. But now there are rituals that people perform without thinking about it. Well, I want more money. Well, if you're going to get more money, then maybe there's something you're not doing. Well, more money is just going to fall into my lap. Is it? Well, but people do these things. So they're wishing the universe to change for them when maybe the change needs to come from within. A true shaman would sit down with somebody and say, well, you got money problems? Yes, I want more money to come in. The shaman's going to look at the person and go, but what are you doing about it? Well, I don't know. I'm stuck at this dead end job. And yeah, okay. So you spend most of your day complaining about the job you don't like. How much of that day do you spend looking for the job that you do? What? But I want you to say a prayer and make some kind of ceremony, ritual, or do something. I want money to fall out of the sky on me, or I want this person to love me, or whatever it is. But if you're trying to force that energy in any way, shape, or form, that is not a ceremony. That's a ritual, because you're going to ritualize things that have been spoken in wrong for many centuries or millennium possibly, in order to try to achieve something for your own gain. That breaks that number one rule: do no harm. And you go, well, what harm is it if I say a prayer that I want this person to love me? Because you're forcing the issue. Maybe the universe is trying to tell you, you and that person, even though you're glamorized with them and really like them, maybe you guys would be hateful together. You don't know, but the universe does. But when the universe speaks, two people meet. That's like that. That wasn't a derogatory. That was when two people meet. Then there is a spark, and I have met people that it's like, whoa, there is a spark there. I've known you from another universe or something. And then there are people who are very beautiful or attractive or whatever, but somebody go, oh boy, I'd like to take that one and shake a woo woo, and I look and go, dang, yeah, they might be pretty, but there's nothing there. And I don't necessarily mean an airhead, but I mean there's nothing there for me. They're really beautiful. They got big, in there, and but that's as far as it goes. But now there's some other plain person in the corner who's got an aura that's shining up, the whole corner. That's the person I want to go speak to. It's the person with this inner light. There's an inner beauty. People say, wow, that inner beauty stuff. No, if you actually will allow it to happen, the inner beauty will come out. But in order for anybody to force anything is against that number one rule. If you try to sway it, now I'm saying, okay, so be with someone. And if maybe the person's not noticing you, then do something subtle. Would you like to get coffee with me someday? Do something that is more natural. Allow yourself, would you mind if I tagged along? Or, you're going to an audition. Is it open to anybody? Could I come? Not necessarily with you, but I'd like to go and see what the other person likes, for example. But now, if you just see somebody in a particular instance, I know I have done this early in my life. I've dreamed up what this other person could be doing and how I could be living with this other person, and talk about delusional in a lot of ways. And earlier on in this life, it was a lesson I had to learn in that. But wait a minute, when the two of us are actually together, it's totally different. You can rent with somebody, you can be roommates for a little while, or you and a partner, you stay over there, and you might even have your toothbrush but the thing is that when you move in together and you're there all the time, that just changes everything. And if there isn't a divine spark, what could be called lust, in quite frankly, and I don't mean lust physically, but lust of the heart, lust of the mind, whatever that feeling is that the two of you have. But after a short time, you can look at each other and go, this ain't working. And you struggle hard to keep it working. And sometimes the other one goes, I don't. Anyway, there are differences. I got off the topic of the ceremonies. Excuse me. But it is very important, because if you try to influence someone else, now you can influence somebody else just by being a good person and by maybe sharing some of the things that you may wish to attract with the other person. But if spirit ain't there and like show you two off, if you've made contact and you've done things without being a busybody, and try to make yourself, your feelings known. Hi, I'd like to go have coffee with you, maybe dinner. How about that? And or something similar. Um, Anything more than that is trying to fudge with what's natural. There may be a connection, and maybe it's from a previous life that you've met this other soul. It may be that you share a common ancestry on a soul level that you just don't know about. That doesn't mean that you can live together, be married, and all that kind of stuff. So other times it is. But to the point, though, there are a lot of people who get these false impressions because they want it so badly. So you wish it into existence. And both parties can, when that spark happens, both parties, woo. But then when one loses part of the spark, they try to cover it up with the other party. Anyway. But with that said, though, so in the ceremonies of a shaman, in the shamans that I have met and known, the prayer changes because each condition changes. Now, the ritual of preparation for the prayer is usually followed pretty strictly. Now, there's a slight variance, but it's not anywhere near like the Catholic Church is when everything's got to be just right. Every mass you go to, they all say it the same way. They all do the bowing. Everything is exactly right. If you go to a different shaman of a different tribe, there's going to be slight differences. But the prayer will be for what is needed at that time, not some kind of, ritual. All right. And the ritual of Mass for the Catholics and for Christians is that you must go every Sunday, or for the Seventh-day Adventist, Now, to the point, though, do we all know that Sunday used to be Saturday? Really? Check on that. It was more convenient to put it on Sunday because people who came in to do their business on Saturdays, from working in the fields, that come into Saturday and blah blah blah. If it was if it was church day, then all these saloons and businesses and the feed store had to close. So they moved it to the next day, Sunday, and so that Saturday was a business day. Interesting, but check back. I was floored. And I thought the Seventh-day Adventists were lying to me. And then I come to find out the Catholic Church was lying to me. But that's neither here nor there. But to each of these religions, there is a ritual of their ceremonies. Yeah, the priest or the preacher might, I don't know, have a sermon about poor people or about something. And that would be the difference in the ritual. The ceremony of the sermon would be the change, and that would be the prayer for that day. We're all going to think about those who are dying of cancer. We're going to, whatever it is, whatever the preacher's preaching that day, or the pastor, So that would be the only difference during the ritual would be the ceremony of the sermon, or what gospel they read. That'd be the only difference. But everything else in that mass is ritual. Okay. Now, in a ceremony, it's the opposite. What is important is the ceremony of the song, the ceremony of the prayer, the ceremony of the giving thanks. All of that is part of a ceremony, which is not intended to sway the planet. It's not intended to make any kind of sacrifice. It's intended to make offering of thanks, honor, and blessings to be spread upon others. And thanks to the universe, thanks to what we have, and may this blessing be spread. Now, the particular ceremony may be to help another person to see more clearly into the spirit realm, maybe to understand that, whatever's making them upset. They pray for calmness for the individual. They don't pray that the rest of the family, gets it together and accepts this person. The prayer is for the person who needs it. Now there are types of ceremonies that are for the community, for community blessings. Well, okay. And there are rituals in that. But the ceremony part of it is what is the focus of that particular event. But with the Catholic Church, the event's every Sunday. The event is ritualized. It's ritualized by time. It's ritualized by how many people are there, the priest and an altar boy. It's always, the rituals with the candles and the chalice and a little hunk of some dead person's bones in the altar. And you want to say, wait a minute, hang on, let's just put this in proper perspective. How many? I know a lot of people have been to a powwow. Has anybody at a powwow ever seen them drag dead bones and then dance around it? Well, that's what the Catholic Church does every time they say Mass. They're saying Mass over the dead. Oh, but it's a saint. Well, how do we know? Well, they said so. Well, what about the rest of what they said so? Just saying. So who's doing the ritual and who's doing the ceremony? Which one's more better than the other one? Well, I don't pray over dead bones. I just don't. And the shamans that I know may have used bones from an antler or from a bear or something, or maybe it's porcupine or whatever, but they use it as a totem, as using the strength of the spirit of that animal to help in their ceremony. It's not that they're worshiping porcupine, which is one of mine, or otter, which is one of mine, and or beaver, which is one of mine. But you say, well, you worship these. No, I give thanks for the otter and what they do on the river. If you've ever, I've got otters that play on my river. I haven't seen them in a year or two, but I'm hoping they're still around. But, I'd get in my kayak and see them running up and down the bank, playing with each other, playing in the water, coming up. And at the end of one of my ceremonies, one of them come up, smiled at me. I could have reached out and patted him or her on his head, and thanked me for the ceremony I gave with the river. I mean, I could have reached out and patted this thing literally right there, popped up, said hi, thank you. And it was my answer to the ceremony that I performed all night. And so I look at these critters and I think to myself, I'm attached to these critters in spirit form because I understand their role on this planet and maybe even in the universe. And they help to keep things in balance. They're on the land, they're in the water. They're very playful, but at the same time, don't get one pissed off. You'd have a ticked off otter on your hands. But the same thing is true with a beaver. People think that beavers are destructive, and they can chew down a bunch of trees, let me tell you, and they'll eat up a bunch of bark, but that's what beavers do. But what a lot of people don't understand, that I've seen beaver chews, and from the young saplings on my property and my neighbors all around here, down here in the swamp, that beavers will chew up and down the bark in the wintertime because they need something to chew on. They get whatever it is out of that. So, but when they build their dams, they're actually building holding ponds for fish and crawdads. They actually help to in flood control in certain areas. So, are beaver dams dangerous up to a point? Yes. But at the same point, oh, hello, Michelle. Blessings to you. But at the same point, beavers also create a recreational area. I mean, 1 2-foot dam in the right spot can flood 2, 3, 4, maybe up to 10 acres of property. So now you've brought in all kinds of different kinds of wildlife that the beaver doesn't necessarily use. Beavers don't really go looking for crawdads and stuff, but possums and especially raccoons and the otter we'll be looking for these crawdads to eat. It brings in frogs. Now, okay, who eats frogs? What's this and that? Well, birds will eat the frogs. So I've seen a hawk carry off a frog that was like, it was huge, big bullfrog, and take it up to its nest to feed its young. And I'm like, I never thought about a hawk eating a big bullfrog, but why not? Why not? It's hopping around. They saw it, down they go. But to the point though, so there's a lot of things in life and in nature and all of these balances. If we look at it and pay attention to them, we'll understand that every day that nature is alive, there is a silent ceremony going on. Has nothing to do with ritual, but it has everything to do with ceremony. The birds chirp, the owls hoot, the different dogs bark back and forth. At certain times of the night, I can go outside almost like clockwork and hear coyotes off in the distance, and they'll all go yip, 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 yip. They're coyotes, they're not dogs. And they let on a squall sometimes for 5 minutes, and then they'll go dark, and then you'll hear them another 2 hours later, and the whole pack has moved to another an area around here. And right now, before all the leaves come on the trees, there's a big echo of sound. So you can hear these things up the river, down the river, across the swamp. And but the thing is that people say, well, I don't know what that is. Well, why do I care? Well, there are foxes. There are foxes that go through my backyard that check out my chickens all the time, but they can't find a way in yet. But some of the possums have. And, it's like, well, why do I care? I live in the city. Then you're missing out on all the activity that goes on. People say, well, they live in an apartment. They go, I'm bored. It, if I say that, I walk outside and it's like boredom just because there's all these things that are happening all the time as part of the ceremony of life. Now, life isn't a ritual, but it is a ceremony. And one of the things that a true shaman will share is that when you understand you're part of the entire universe, not just your apartment or your job or your family. And I mean, I know I'm sounding a little redundant here, but people, well, I got my job and I got my family, yeah, yeah, yeah. But I realized that I have family in the universe. I have all the family that's passed on at my fingertips because all I have to do is remember. Say, Granny, I know you're out there. I love you. I still do. And she sends, I just got to like, I still love you too. But I have no idea what dimension grandma's in. I don't have any idea where she's at, or maybe she's reincarnated. But in my belief and understanding about the quantum and about the universe, I don't lose contact. So when I continue in my own life, now trust me, yesterday and earlier today, I was like struggling. I try not to speak about how hard my days are. But yesterday and today, oh my goodness, talk about crawling on the floor, struggling. I want to stand up. Please help me. Whoops, there I go again. Sorry, got to go back to sleep for another 3 or 4 hours. But with that said, though, I after I finally woke up earlier, about which should have been at 11 o'clock this morning, didn't wake up till 4:30 this afternoon, and so my whole afternoon was kind of blown. But instead of going, "Oh, woe is me," I left my afternoon. I got me some coffee. Hey, Bob, how are you? Michelle, good to see you still. Thank you, Bob, the AI, for all that you do for us. But with that said, though, you know, in my past, and I've discussed this, I'd have said, oh my God, the whole day's gone by. Now I think, well, I didn't get that part. All right, now, but what's next? So worry about what I missed. I can't gain that back, and worrying about it sure doesn't help me. So my ceremony of self is to, okay, it doesn't matter what time it is for me because I'll go out and work in the garden in the middle of the night. But to the point, though, it's like, well, I missed this opportunity to do some things during the daytime. Okay, now, but I'm awake now. It it's cooled outside. Yesterday I had the darn fan on because it was so hot, and now I had to turn the heater on because it's so cold. So, but I knew this was coming. But anyway, so in my ceremony of life, where some people have rituals, you get up, you go shave, you brush your teeth, you take a day, go blah blah blah, and there is a ritual in your day. So a lot of people have ritualized everything that they do. But my point in this trying to explain, there is a distinct difference that when your day becomes ritualized, have you lost the ceremony of life for your spirit, for yourself, for who you are? Take coffee with you one day instead of stopping at the Starbucks. Go out to eat at a different restaurant and instead of packing a sack lunch, depending. Um, go down one street over to get home. Turn 2 blocks early and go through the part of the neighborhood you don't normally go through. Change something. Simply because, oh my God, I didn't know that person lived there. Look at their rose bushes are enormous. Oh my God, look at the azaleas blooming. I mean, whatever it is. But when you get into a ritual of just everyday things, and I was part of it, a lot of years I spent in the ritual of going to work and coming home. But in that, I realized that, wait a minute, this is a ritual. And I'm being forced to do this. I really don't want to do this like this. They're forcing me into the hours. They're forcing me into this, blah, blah, blah. Now, I like my job. I like different portions of my job, but there were those parts that were ritualized all the time. If I was a minute late, well, I worked 2 hours overtime the night before. They didn't never consider that. I was 2 minutes late. And I'd go, are you guys paying attention? I drive an hour here and an hour home. I worked 2 hours late yesterday and I got caught by a train on the way in today. I'm a minute late. You want to holler at me? I fixed your machines before I went on. Ritual. Well, but see, the company says, because that's the ritual of the company or the society or whatever the rules are. So we are forced into rituals. And I oftentimes wonder, it's because, are we forced into these rituals of life that are, we get used to them, but that we forget why we're here. We forget that there is a ceremony of life every single day. The trash smells good on a Thursday before they pick it up. The paper mill, which if you've ever been around a paper mill, it smells. But to the point is like, well, but I can smell it. Oh my God, I want to puke. I'm alive to see another day. I'm alive to choose what I wish to do. I can choose to go down a different street. I know that seems silly, but when you change the patterns, when you become so ritualized in your daily activities, you lose the passion of life. Life has become the ritual versus life becoming the ceremony of life. Where is the ceremony in the ritual of having to go be at work the same time every day? And then you got to do this. And people are so enamored in this ritual that it becomes their life. Now, I know that some folks might say you're tiptoeing in some crazy area. But in my world of the shaman, of a practitioner of the natural things, every day is a ceremony if I choose so. I get up, I wake up, drink 2 cups of coffee, rub my eyes, sneeze for half an hour till my meds kick in. And then I say, well, now what are we going to do with the rest of today? Now, the fact that I'm 66 and retired, okay, I've got this choice. Other people, you say, well, Hawkeye, I still got to go to work. I still have, kids. I understand that. But in your philosophy of life, you can look at these things every day and go, well, you know what? Maybe I'm going to do this first and then I want to brush my teeth. Or I'm going to do this and then I'm going to shave. Just alter it once in a while. Just so your brain goes, oh, well, that was different. So you don't become psychically and emotionally attached to the ritual itself, which is just that. It's just a ritual. Does it mean anything? Well, there are people, I've had friends of mine that, if they're not 10 minutes early for everything, a doctor's appointment where you're going to have to sit for an hour, 10 minutes early. And then you usually spend, 2 hours waiting, because you're 10 minutes early. But anyway, in certain things, I've always been late in life. And every time I try to be early, every time I tried to push the envelope and be 5 minutes early, I'd have a freaking flat tire and be a flat tire and have been a half hour late. I mean, my luck on trying to be on time sucks. But at the same point, I always tried. I always made the effort. I was always there. That was one thing. I might be 5 minutes late, but I'll stay an hour after. So that's one of the ways I, quote, got away with being late. But I was always working an hour or two after. So, where other people were getting home and getting relaxed and everything, I was still working for 2 or 3 more hours. And then I had to drive home. And then I had, go through my ritual. But anyway, this isn't about me. I'm just using that as an example because I have been there. But in this self realization of even while I was there, I had these visions where I had uh, white dove come and visit me on several of my drives back to work and home. And that in that, she told me, a Native American version, if you will, of Mother Mary, that even in these, this forced ritual of going back and forth to work, what I do during the drive, what I do in my mental thing, what I do when I get home. Do I take it home with me? Do I get home and go, "Wow, today was really freaking frustrating"? I mean, there are things that I can change from what the ritual could be, and I can turn that ritual of the time here that takes this time, and you get home, and okay, it's 7 o'clock. Okay, but whatever it is. But the thing is that when we just change our vision of it and go, you know what? Things have kind of come ritualized for me. Maybe I need to make this a ceremony. Thank you, razor blades, for being sharp enough to cut, not nick my face, and I got to wear toilet paper because I nicked my face shaving, or I got to use a styptic pencil, or whatever, or my pantyhose ran. Oh, whatever. Okay, I wore pantyhose for a short time, but not for the reasons you think. Um, I'm just going to leave that right there just for the dickens of it. Um, but with that said, though, in the ceremony of shamans, priests, some pagan ritual type ceremonies, I was I helped to officiate, if you will, a marriage ceremony that was pagan based, and there was no cutting of anything. There was no blood sacrifice. There wasn't anything like that. There were herbs, there was grape juice, there was wine, there were different things that were ritualistic during the marriage ceremony. So certain lights were lit, there was an altar, if you will, but that just held the stuff like the mug, the chalice, if you will, for them to drink out of. And there was this ceremonial knife that was not necessarily for cutting each other. It was up to them if they wanted to bond themselves, but not part of the ceremony. It was part of a ritual. Now, Native Americans have done that, and other nations have done that, where you make a small slice on your hand on the opposite, whatever, and when you join hands, you join blood. I mean, that goes way back, but that's the only type of blood that ever would be used unless I did a ceremony for myself, like I did for the land, and I knew it required my blood to help heal the blood that was spilled previously on this property. And okay, so it was just a couple of drops. That's not the point. I didn't sacrifice anything, but I did make an offering of my own bodily fluid in my own ceremony to bring peace to my property. Well, it's not mine, but I'm the caretaker of this property. And in my own self, that I'm willing to sacrifice blood to make right those things I did in a previous life here. So what I did, and the fact that I used my own blood, was a very, 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 very specific reason and thing. I've never ever seen blood used in any other type of ceremony, unless it was for the curing of a person or something that you make the ultimate sacrifice. You could prick your finger and that's enough. It's the idea that you're willing to give up a bodily fluid, the life blood, as part of your ceremony. I'm willing to give up my life, if you will, to get better or to do this. But it's never to influence someone else, it's always to help the self. So a shaman wouldn't cut his own blood to do a ceremony for anyone else because it just wouldn't work. It just it would bounce back. The other thing is then in the shaman tradition, Like I said, if you go to a shaman and they want to go, we're going to kill something, or we're going to turn around and walk away, they ain't a shaman. I mean, here's how real it is. A true shaman, if it's to use something in the ceremony, like tree branches, leaves, something, whatever. Like, for example, when I was named Hawkeye, we built from scratch a sweat lodge. All of the trees were prayed to prior to cutting. While the trees were being bent and tied together, each knot had a prayer. And the prayer was very basic. It's not like some whoop-de-whoa magical, but it is, I tie this knot with true of spirit to make this a sacred place. That's pretty much it. I tie this knot in honor of these trees to make this sweat lodge a sacred place. You never really repeat the same thing over and over again, but it's the thought. So in changing the words, it each knot gets a prayer. The whole thing takes on more of a ceremonial type of thing versus ritual, where you must say the same prayer for every knot. Like, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord. Okay. But this is, I tie this knot in honor and respect. I tie this knot to respect and honor. I mean, but the thing is, it's your intent. You're in tying this knot to make this uh, a a special place. So, but with that, it becomes part of the ceremony, not a ritual. Even though you're praying on each knot, but you follow me. There, it's a very, very thin line, and some people go, "Oh, they're the same." They're really not, because I've seen some rituals like the Catholic Church that I simply refuse to be a part of. But there are many ceremonies that I would gladly and drive to. There's going to be a powwow coming up here in about a month um, near St. George, Florida, and I'm sorry, Georgia, on the border with Florida, but North Florida. But anyway, with that said, um, I have seen I would gladly go there for the ceremonies that these folks do, the drumming and so forth. But I don't go because of the ritual. Now, it may be ritualistic in that I take my drum with me and I take some of my own spiritual rocks and critters and things or whatever. That's my own personal ritual, if you will. And what the Native Americans usually call their regalia. Now, the regalia is what you see them wear. You know, they've got, if it's a jingle dancer, they've got a lot of bells. If it's a hoop dancer, they've got hoops and things. So, but anyway, but to what some folks would consider a costume, it is considered highly sacred and part of their ceremony, not the ritual, but part of the ceremony in which they will wear their Sunday best, if you will. But in this, it's like my regalia. I wore it at all the sacred ceremonies that I've been in. Not all, but I mean, it was used only for that. So if I put on my own regalia, that is my own prayer message. It's my own stuff. It's my own ritual, if you will, as part of the grander ceremony. So each wears their own regalia, each has their own intent, but in their intent may be, I'm a jingle dancer, and therefore my dance is to jingle and wake up. But everyone's intent of the dance is to make a better place, is to honor Mother Earth, is to honor the universe in the ceremony. That cannot be said with the Catholic Church or with other religions. I mean, Christian religions, because they all they refuse to deviate from the norm. Okay, everybody comes in, everybody sits down, the pastor comes out, you sing a couple of songs, and everybody, right? I mean, it's ritual, and you go, well, no, it isn't. Well, yeah, it is. Watch. Don't you, at every point in a certain part of the Bible, don't you stand up or sit down, depending on your faith or your religion? Don't you do something, blah, 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 blah. You make the sign of the cross. Don't you throw holy water at certain, whatever it is, That's part of the ritual that is a part of the ceremony. But now, I got to say that the ceremony of the sermon is about the only part of a Catholic Mass that's actually different. And it's the differences in the overall ritual that makes a difference. Now, in that, I'm going to reiterate to just make perfectly clear again, I use certain things that are ritualistic. I use my crystals, I use sage, I use, you know, uh, my common prayer is blessings to this circle, blessing to this forest, blessing to this earth, blessing to the sky. So is there a ritual in that? Well, it is, because I acknowledge it, I honor it. But is it a ritual in that I have to follow certain procedures every time? Well, yes, I usually start in the east, go south, then west, north, then down, then up, and then inside. But other nations may come in from the north, and they start with the north to the east, to the south, to the west. It usually always goes clockwise, usually. And even in ceremonies with people who don't even know what clockwise knows, they all dance in the same direction, which usually is clockwise. That's just an interesting point in itself. But with that said, so reconsider what some people say. Well, that's some kind of ritual. Well, wait a minute. Getting up and having bacon and eggs every morning is a ritual. Getting up every morning and making coffee before you and having that's a ritual. If you do the same thing a lot, that's a ritual. It has become a ritual, not necessarily a ceremony. But each one of us can turn those rituals into a ceremony of life. Now, isn't that an interesting take? How many folks, this is just a theoretical question out there, but how many people have actually talked about that there actually is a difference between the two? And in my world, I do certain things by ritual because they work, and I want to make sure that I cover everything. So I got a checklist. But what if I started at the south one night versus the east? Or I went to the north and did it? What if I did it counterclockwise? Would I be like upsetting the universe? It may be that that particular ceremony requires it. I know my friend, several of my friends, I've been called a Heoki for many years before I even knew what it was. But in that, sometimes I am a contrarian. So sometimes there are things that I do because I follow the universe, and I end up going counterclockwise. And I was asked that by several other shamans, and I go, "Why'd you go that way?" And it was like, "'Cause spirit told me to." And they were like, "That's a damn good answer." We and it was sort of but we always go clockwise. And I was like, "Yeah, but doesn't spirit ever tell you to go the other way?" And my one friend said, "Well, you know what? Come to think of it, yeah, but my training said don't." And so here was this person who is basically a card carrying medicine man shaman type and was teaching other people quite wisely. When I asked him the question, then why have you not ever gone counterclockwise? Because I was told that that's the opposite. Well, what if there is like from a Heoki's point of view, which could be a court jester, or it's the yin and yang of the tribe. It's the crazy person to keep everybody sane, and has much wisdom and was highly revered in many cultures. Uh, but anyway, so the Heoki, the contrarian, maybe sometimes there needs to be in a swimming pool. If you ever owned a fairly large swimming pool, I'm up ground anyway, you have to back flush to get the garbage out of the filter. Well, I've thought about it in that terms. What if sometimes Mother Earth needs to go backwards to like eject something back up into the space that's been like contained here for too long? And then there are times when I have done ceremonies, especially with dance, that I tried to go counterclockwise, and I was just like, boom, ain't going that way. This is a clockwise motion dance. Oh, and then you go. But if you don't listen, even the shaman that I was just speaking about, he was like, because I kept saying, well, I don't know, but I was told, oh, just go clockwise. Yeah, but what if the spirit? What if in your ceremony it says, but you know, hey, Wolf, you need to go the other way this time. Well, I don't know. I probably would go. That's not right. I know better. I got to go to the right. In my realm, I accept that there are times when I may have to dance counterclockwise as part of that ceremony. Ritual would tell me you can't go the other way because it's not part of the ritual. Oh, so I broke protocol. And I was told so. You broke protocol. And I was like, yeah, but what was the outcome? And looked around, kind of looked and was like, hmm, nothing opened up in the planet and sucked in. So whatever was needed during the ceremony I was performing and someone was observing, they were like, that was necessary for you, wasn't it? You had to go counterclockwise for that, didn't you? And I was like, yeah. That's my question about this. I don't always go that way, but when I begin the dance and spirit leads me in that direction as part of that ceremony, I have to listen. Now, there are those who will listen, but they're doing rituals. So who they're connecting to may not be their spirit guide. It may not be the guardian that's there within their circle. So they may be asked to dance backwards for a totally different reason because they're performing rituals, meaning they've got to follow everything in the book all the way down the line. They must follow the rituals. They got to say it exactly the same every time. They got to say it the same number of, they have to repeat it the same number of times. Everything has to follow the ritual that would make the ceremony. But the ceremony is not the ritual. So in my shaman times, and hello, Pamela, knowledge through osmosis. My son is like a beaver. He's chewing up every book in the house. No idea why. Um, check the Michelle. This is just between us and the rest of the world. Find Take the books that he's chewed on and smell because hello, Melanie. There may be something, and literally take a corner of one of the books he's chewed on and put it in your mouth and find out. Let it dissolve in your mouth. Don't try to chew it, and then just taste the palate, because it may be very well that there is, and it could be a mineral that's in the pages or in the ink or in part of that I mean, there are certain animals that they don't do it all the time, but I came across this one little, uh, we have these little tortoise turtle kind of things, what you normally would think of as a turtle, but not necessarily in the water kind. But I'm was on one of my walks in back in the swamp, and I'm walking along and I spot this thing, and it's chewing on a bone. Not on what the bone was, but here was this little box turtle. Thank you. Here's this little box turtle chewing on the bone of some critter. And then I watched and was like, well, that's interesting. So, and I've got deer antlers and things that I have found in the woods that got all these chew marks on it. And so I did. Now this has been many years ago, but then I did some checking, and that all critters need some kind of calcium and stuff. They find it naturally, and that even turtles will chew on the bones of other dead critters for the calcium and for the minerals. So my point in that, why is he chewing on a book? Why is a turtle chewing on a bone? There is probably a mineral or something. There are some critters that will literally eat dirt. Of course, I know people who eat dirt now too, but it's because it's either for the minerals or it's to help them digest. So, Michelle, I would look at what's in the book. I mean, smell, taste, whatever. I would look at that. Not, and the other part is he just likes to chew on stuff. So then find something that he could chew on without tearing up your books. And sometimes they're hard to replace. But anyway, so um, smell like chocolate. Yeah, never thought of that. Well, we don't know what it smells like. And, there are times when critters of all species, sometimes, especially children, because they don't know any better, they just do what kind of smells, taste, or whatever. But whatever draws it to them, now I can't say that it's necessarily good for them. All right. But thank you, Pamela. I love this channel too, because you all make it possible. Um, but there's always something that maybe it's tactile. Okay. Maybe it's the something about it. Find something in, that I'm sorry. Maybe you could find some hemp paper, something that, find a book made out of hemp. I don't know. I'm not trying to, turn. I think you get what I mean. Hemp paper would be less poisonous than all this other kind of stuff. That's what I was thinking, not to try to get your child on hemp, but as to say that wouldn't, that might actually help in itself. But so with the ceremony and the ritual, people need to understand, rituals can become part of a ceremony. In fact, most ceremonies have ritualistic type things attached, tied with, or whatever. Got the hiccups for some reason. Hang on. Bob wants a cup of coffee. And I rinsed my cup off. Finally, after several days, somebody said, "Wow, when was the last time you washed your cup?" Then I went, "Fudge, I don't know. Maybe I should wash it." Anyway, yes, I bet it has been a challenging day. Let me send a little bit of good blessings your way, as I always do, but seems like maybe you need a martini, honey. Marty needs to come in and take care of the teeny for a bit. Anyway, a little bit of humor there. But sticking with the topic, as I try to do, the ceremony of things has a lot to do with your intent. So in discussing ceremony with some of these other shaman and medicine men, I was like, so do you say the same prayer over? No. Well, but if you're doing a ceremony, but Hawkeye, each ceremony is not the same. Well, but you do all these other things that are ritualistic. Yeah, but we know these things work. So it's like if you first give honor, if you first bless the place, that area that is where you're going to perform the ceremony, it is your intent during all of it that is the ceremony. Now, my prayer to the stones that I put out, the prayer that I say while I'm picking the stones to use for the fire, I mean, I literally ask the rocks, will you become part of the ceremony? And if I hold the rock and I get this, not now, I go get another one. I mean, seriously. And I know people, that's kind of crazy. No, if you're looking for the right vibration, what you need to do then is ask your surroundings. May I perform this ceremony here? May I have these rocks to join me in this? May I have the permission of the trees and of the ground and of the grass where I wish to perform this ceremony? The reason for my ceremony is to bring blessing and honor to the planet and to Mother Earth and to honor all of you and to ask for guidance and so forth on a particular issue. So you're going to do all these wonderful positive things. All these things is your intent. But do you ask ahead of time? Does anybody consider, well, it's just ground and dirt. But have you asked it if you can do that there? Well, why should I? It's just ground, then you don't get this. Whereas in churches and things, they have set aside ceremonial places in order to perform their rituals. Different. Now, I may have a special circle which I do several places on my property, depending on the height of the water and how wet it is. But in that I have asked the land consecutively and continuously over the years. Now I did have to move one spot because there was some negative energy that got slashed in and it got kind of messed up in the and this area said not now, which I was like, not now. And they were like, come back later, just not right now. Well, okay. What I realized after the fact, it's where someone had broke the circle during a fire ceremony and combined with a water ceremony next to the river. And that because the circle had been broken and because the circle had been tarnished, it had allowed some nasty spirits into the circle. And so I went back to that same place and asked it, is it all right? And they were like, not now. And what I realized after the fact, it wasn't that they didn't say no, they said not now. Meaning, if I were to listen to the area, there were probably spirits hanging about that were still negative in some way, that could have somehow got this weird attachment through the ceremony. Not actually very sure. But that the bottom line was I listened to the ceremonial site, if you will. Respect. If I was just to go down there, light a fire, and do my thing without asking, that might not necessarily be the right thing to do. So we have to, as a shaman, if you're really interested in performing a ceremony, you have to bring in all of these outside things. Most folks don't, okay? They're more into the ritual of the event versus what does the overall ceremony mean. If I'm going to go light a fire and take my drum and go through all those motions, I need to have a specific purpose for doing all of the rituals that would bring the ceremony. Because the only thing written down is the fact that I need to thank and honor and bring gifts, in honor and adoration of the universe and in all the directions. That's okay. But after that part of the ritual is over, the ceremony is the intent and what happens next. The song that I sing is the song I sing at the moment. Help protect the earth. Help bring enlightenment to, I'm doing this because this in a way is a ceremony. Now, I didn't wave any magic wands and I didn't light any sage, but because of my intent, what I'm doing right now with you all is a ceremony because I'm connected with my higher self. I'm listening. And through my voice and through my discussion with you, we're all having a similar type of event. That is my intent, that we understand what the differences are. We do ritualistic things in order for our ceremonies to turn out the right way. And again, I keep using this word intent. If my intent is that we all share a good vibe with this, what's wrong with that? So the ritual is I got on here, we're having conversations, y'all are checking in with each other. I'm looking at the little dot up there that the camera's on. That's kind of ritualistic. But my intent with this ceremony with you of having this video is that we just all share a good, lovable, peaceful thought and help Michelle out with this child that wants to eat things. If it were a dog, I'd say use a muzzle, but no, please, that not even go there, but you're welcome, Michelle. I've worked with children and folks in different areas over the years, and Creator has given me the opportunity to, wait a minute, why would let's look at the behavior. And somebody said, well, that child needs a pill. Hey, that child, if he's eating all the Buxom, he must go on Ritalin or Adderall or something. There's a new drug out there. That, we need to put this child, we need to tape his mouth shut. If you were down here in the South, of course, if you're down here in the South with a bunch of reg nuts, the only Books that are going to get tore up are going to be motorcycle magazines, and and how to fix your car, and anyway, I know, bad joke for us Southerners, but um, and rich folks have shelves at the bottom of their libraries so children can't touch them. But anyway, I'm, I'm being kind of mean and a little coarse, but it's kind of true. Um, because I've built bookcases for rich people is the reason I know. Wow, we're gonna put doors down here so the little rugrats won't get into my books. Well, okay. Anyway, um, but sometimes creator just gives me that look at, if you don't know what it is, then think out of the box. And me, I ain't got a box to think out of. So I'm like, but what would prompt somebody to choose something? Does he need this? Is it something in the taste? I mean, so the thing is, oh my God, my child's eating books. Yeah, well then you get caught up in it. But wait a minute, there might be something really simple to this. Let's keep it simple, stupid. Let's just look what's there. It is maybe there's something in my diet, my child's diet. I don't know, but and I can't answer that for you. But to the point, look at it from a what's on those books. Try to give him a book and see if he'll chew it. Like, well, do you like religious art? Do you like religious iconography? Would you rather, would you like to chew on this volume of the Bhagavad Gita? I got an old Bible. Does that suit your taste? But in that, I jest, but it may be in the print in the book. It may be how old the paper is. There are a lot of differences, but to my point, there might literally be something in the paper itself, how it's processed. A lot of chemicals in there. But anyway, so. Oh, he ate the crib too. Oh, um, Michelle, how old again? I forgot. You think it's his autism? Then give him. Oh, 4 in April. Okay, no problem. He's going through a teething oral fixation that we had this issue with some folks that I worked with. That I worked for many years with the developmentally disabled. We had adults and we had children, and I was like um, uh, the assistant director kind of thing. We had like 85 people there at the center, about half and half adult and half, and some of them were severely retarded. And I hate to use that word, but that's basically it. Dysfunctional. But one of the things I found out, there were things that we needed to do, and it was literally you got to think out of the box. Now, go find him a chew toy. Go into the cat section, dog section. Don't tell anybody what the hell you're doing. But no wood, therefore, to the toilet. I'm feeling somewhat helpless, hopeless. Um, we found a particular chew toy, literally, for this 3, 4, 5 year old. We had it for a couple of years, but it was the texture. It had little bumps on it. It was like one of them doggy bones, and but there was a squishiness to it, but not. But it the little ridges on it helped with their gums. Now you say, wait a minute, you're equating my son to a dog. We're all animals until we learn differently. And there are some things that we instinctively need to do, which is like chew on stuff. I used to chew on stuff all the time as an adult. I could chew a pencil up in no time flat. I had all this stuff all in my mouth from chewing pencils. But to the point, though, if it truly is an oral fixation, then to save everything else, find them something, and it might be several somethings. But if somebody said you gave your son a doggy toy, listen, don't just say, "Yep." My a psychiatrist friend of mine, a doctor friend of mine, suggested I try this. Eh, who knows? You can make up a white lie like that. But the thing is that if you find the right thing that fits that oral mastication, chewy kind of whatever it is. And some kids take it into day 6 and 7, but and especially a child that has autism. But what better, let them chew on everything in the house or give them something to chew on? And I don't mean to be rude in this. I mean, like, you might have to buy 4 or 5 different little chew toys. Get the kind of harder, rubbery, bone-likey things. But if you think, this is stupid, young children who use the little foolers or the pacifiers, when they get older, they chew them up. Our son at a certain age, all he didn't really suck on it. He chewed on it. It's like, well, there goes that one. And but different children have different types of things, and a person, especially with autism, or did I get that wrong? It's not autism, it's something else. But anyway, you get what I mean. Try it. You can save a lot of hours and actually, like, give the person something to literally chew on, if you will. Let it become part of their ritual of daily life rather than chewing on a book. But anyway, so sorry to hijack your show. To friends, since moving to the USA from Canada, why not? The toys are similar. Absolutely. But the thing is that you go look at it as what it's all about: texture. And each individual will have their own texture. So you might think, well, that looks good, but they might go, you know, it's like you, trying to buy a dog a toy, and they go, well, I don't really, you go, they never touch that one, but they'll chew on your shoe. It's the texture. There's a smell about it. But anyway, but to the point, you didn't hijack the show. Anytime we can be of service in any way, shape, or form, that's one reason why I'm here. And I think we should all be, because we're all sending you love and support to you, Michelle, and to your son as well, because, I've worked with people for many years like that, and it is difficult. It's just flat out difficult, and you got to do the best that you can. So, anyway, any little tidbits I can share with you, I'm more than happy to. But to not just keep on and on and on about this, not that you sideswipe my show. How can you sideswipe a show that just has a topic? But anyway, 45 and a half, too old. And I'm 66 and a half, and I'm still not too old. So get off your little, young ass, never mind. But yeah, okay. Until you match me in age, you're just a kid. What's the matter here, you little youngins? Get off my lawn. Yeah, right. But anyway, yes, I'm lighting a cigarette, but it's been a day and a half and I'm still on the same pack. Thumbs up for me. So I've been wanting to smoke this cigarette for the last 2 hours. And the good news is I've been smoking about half of them and then putting them out and then relighting them afterwards. So I just want a little bit of tobacco taste in my mouth rather than smoking a whole cigarette and chain smoking. But anyway, I'm still working on my, my devices here on this planet. But anyway, with the ceremony, and do you have any particular questions um, about 420, 2 or 3 a day stress? Yep. I'm sorry. I've given up everything else on dang near on this planet, and so I smoke a couple of cigarettes. My lungs are in better shape than people who don't even smoke, which is interesting, um, but anyway, do you have any specific questions about ceremonies versus rituals? Because I want folks to understand that you can have a ceremony that uses different ritualistic things. Whoa, just had a big uh, programs trying to start without my permission. Dad, gone you. Anyway, here we are. But It's important. It's important for pieces. It's important for people to understand that there are pieces of of a ceremony that may be ritualistic, but if your whole ceremony is only a ritual, then it's not really a ceremony. I mean, it may be the ceremony in the wrong way. What is your intent? And again, I have to stress, if you do any type of ceremony, ritual thing to try to influence another person to change their point of view or for you or whatever, a love charm or something, or and especially if you even think about cursing another person, you're in big doo doo, because that energy, whoa, it'll darken your soul in a heartbeat. If you do something in with revenge, if revenge is your intent, darkness, karma that you is going to be dang difficult to get rid of, if you can. If sometimes you can, I curse you, you SOB, I wish you'd have a blah blah blah. That is just as powerful as sitting down and lighting a candle. If your intent is to seriously wish harm on another person, whether you went through a ritual or not, you've cursed them. Be very, very careful, because curses can curse the entire family, your entire lineage, because curse you. And now there are different levels of this, but any person who uses that kind of intent is in serious gray water, mostly dark. You're not walking in the light if you're wishing harm on someone in any way, shape, or form. So, and if you broke that rule once, then you better dang sure just put yourself flat on the ground and ask Mother Earth and all of the stars above to help you, save you, and to correct that wrong that you did. Because if you had intent to wish harm on someone, those are some serious ramifications. It's almost, if not as bad as as just murder them or stabbing them or hurting them yourself, because the karmic value of what your intent is can be imprinted in places. Whoa, you really don't want to go there. So, in all things, be careful in what you wish for. So, anytime I've done a shaman ceremony, my intent has always been, I'm doing uh, this fire ceremony along with the water ceremony, because the people who are coming wish to get rid of and to accept a new energy. They wish to get rid of a bad thought and replace it with something good. So, wait a minute. So the entire intent of the big ceremony, including the rituals involved, the intent of the entire ceremony for everyone present is to lift something they wish off their heart and to send it up with the smoke and the fire, thus the fire ceremony, and to use the water to cleanse that which was you're trying to get rid of, wash you, and accept the new thing that you want to do. So the whole ceremony, from 3 or 4 days of preparation beforehand and the entire ceremony itself, its intent is a positive thing. Nowhere in it does anybody get hurt. Now, there have been instances where people have hurt from it, but that's usually on an internal basis. If you attended the ceremony that I was involved with, my intent was to rid you of that sorrow, that anguish, that whatever it is, and allow spirit to come into you and give you a new purpose. What's the wrong with that? But some people in themselves didn't relinquish it. Part of the thing you have to do when you go through a ceremony like that is, if you get rid of it, then don't go home and then start thinking about it. Well, did I get rid of it? Well, is it still there? But then you didn't get rid of it. You have to release it. But now a ritual doesn't necessarily give you that kind of opportunity. because the ritual has to follow the book. So, do you get a say so in the ritual? Or is it that you get your say so as part of the ceremony? Okay. There is a huge difference, especially in, quote, I hate to say it like this, but in my line of work, if you will, in the shaman kind of tradition, if there's any bad thoughts, that's why I start 2 or 3 days before a true ceremony, in that I want to make sure there ain't nothing in there that's hanging around that could put a negative into the ceremony. Despite my ritual acts of adoration and honor to the universe, but in my own ceremony as a shaman, is there anything tinkering around in here that might somehow get out during this ceremony when it's all about helping other people, when it's all about getting rid of their whatever negatives and accepting new ones from creator, the cleansing of the water, the fire, and the fact that the prayer of releasing your negative goes up on the smoke. That's all very symbolic and ritualistic in of itself. But the ceremony in total is to release all the beings in the circle of their affliction, of their negative energy. So it's not about, well, we're going to make everybody smile. But at the end of it, I had people call me 2 and 3 days later going, my issue's resolved. I can't believe it. I spent the evening with you, at a fire ceremony and did what you said. And now that is gone from me. I am released of it. And I've got a whole new sense of purpose. I mean, 2, 3 days afterwards, I'm getting phone calls from people who hadn't called me ever to tell me thank you. And I was like, well, then there you go. But it didn't work for everybody because other people's intent weren't as clear and as focused. My intent was clear and focused all the way through, but other people's didn't. So it was their own portion of the ceremony that their intention wasn't as pure. Now I can't help that. But those who did were relieved. If not almost immediately, but within a week, I heard from half of the group, and there was like, I don't know, 14, 15 people. So 6 or 7 people contacted me within a week and said, I've had positive results of this. So, wow, I'm humbled by that. My head didn't get big and go, wow, look what I can do. No, I was humbled. If anything, my head shrunk from the immensity of, oh my God, these people actually got the benefit of my intention to relieve them of a sorrow or an anguish and to bring in a new something else. And to have that kind of feedback is just overwhelming to me. It keeps my humbleness in check to go, wow, not everybody was affected. Everybody got something out of it, but there were 5, 6, 7 people that literally got healed from it, but it was because of their own intent. They wanted it gone. And I was nothing more than a facilitator through my own wishes of relieving their. So intent is everything. And as part of the general ceremony, not the ritual part. Now, there was ritual in that how I handled each person, how they released what they did, and how I gave them the power of the water of the river. That is a ritualistic kind of thing, but it is still a part of the grander ceremony. You do this particular thing, you don't break the circle, but that's to make sure that the prayers stay intact. There is a very good reason for some of the rituals that are observed, but the rituals don't make the ceremony, but they're very important if you wish them to succeed. So, with that, people staring and grinning, what? Listening in line at Safeway, people are staring and grinning. Hi, everybody in line at the Safeway. I've spoken crowds before, so it doesn't really bother me. Um, let's see. I just gave a lady your link, Hawkeye. She doesn't think you're crazy. Wow, that's impressive. And I mean that sincerely. Thank you, Pamela. Great teachings on ceremony versus ritual. Going to implement many of your sage words starting now. Absolutely. And because one of the things is when you realize the difference, when you become conscious of certain things, and it's like so many people do this ritual of life of going through the motions every day, but as soon as you understand, oh my God, that's a ritual. Wait a minute, I'm a human being. I realize this, and when you can stand back and realize what you're doing or how you're doing it, and you take control of it, then the ritual then becomes a ceremony, and it becomes your own personal ceremony. Now, when I used to go to work, I'd say little prayers because when I got my visions, I was told, listen, change your rituals to a ceremony. So when I drank my coffee in the morning, I'm thinking pleasant thoughts about the sky. I'm thinking pleasant thoughts about, people and, so I'm doing my ritual of drinking coffee every morning. But with that, I've added my intent for the day. I wish that everybody wakes up with their coffee too. It can be simple. It doesn't have to be the same thing every day. But the ceremony should change on a daily basis because circumstances change on a daily basis. We still got to get up, we still have to get dressed, most of us, to go to work and etc. So in those things, those rituals are very important for what your day is. But then when you take control of, well, wait a minute, but what's my intent for the day? Well, crap, I'm going to go to work and no, wait. Well, hang on. My intent for the day is everything that I'm going to do, I'm going to try to do in a positive way. Everything that I'm going to do, I'm going to do with a positive intent. And it's as simple as that. But when you make the choice to make that your day versus, well, I'm in a ritual. Well, I got to drive to work again. Well, I got to do all these things, then you ain't got any kind of incentive whatsoever. And your ritual has just become that. There is no control over it. And even though you might have to go through the same step, get dressed, wake up, get dressed, shower, shit, breakfast, or drive to work, go to work. Yeah, but how you do those things is, thank you very much, Michelle. How you do those things and you're again and again, your intentions. So I find myself during the day sometimes, even when I'm pulling weeds, and I go, I'm sorry, I got to pull you weeds. And sometimes I throw them over the fence into the grass so they'll keep growing, but not in my garden. I'm that crazy. But what gives me the right to yank this grass out of my garden? Well, because it's my garden and it's because I chose so. But anyway, but in that I also have to say, well, I could eat you nasty weeds, and that just sends negative energy into my garden. Or I can look at the grass and say, not here. I'm going to pull you up and you're going to go out there with the rest of the grass. That's my intention versus I want to kill you. Totally different. My garden is different because I choose to infuse it with positive energy. So, with that, I want to make sure that every one of you continues with your positive energy. Pamela, as always, thank you. Michelle, it looks like a couple of folks dropped off. That's okie dokie. I understand I'm running a little long. Um, and Melanie, and I can't tell who else has been on here in the chat room. Know that I love you all for your kindness and your blessings back to me. I appreciate it more than you will ever know. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'll close this edition out and understand that rituals can be good things, especially if you understand what your overall purpose is for them. And if you're going to work every day and you got to go through that grind because you want to keep the house up and you want to keep feeding your children, that's a good incentive, but put it in a positive light. My prayer is that I'm going to do the best I can today. And if anybody throws some crap at me, I'm just going to let it run off my back. I'm not going to let it, drag me down. I'm going to try to keep my energy as pure as possible, regardless of what kind of argument somebody might try to make with me during the day. I mean, so just make the choice. But when you do, you've made a choice in the universe. It's a universal choice. It's not just here in 3D. And the angels and the messengers and the higher selves and those other beings are hearing it. Because one of the things that there's been a lot of argument about ET and this, that, and the other thing. And one of the thing is, ET said, why should we help those morons down there on Earth? They're caught up in all these ritualistic things. They don't even know what they're doing. They're just doing because they have to, because it's repetitive and but they don't have any concept of what they're doing. What is their incentive? What is their purpose? What is their higher self saying? And a lot of people, because of the rituals of their daily lives, their spirits have been shut off. Now they're hearing all of us as we speak to one another and as we speak to the universe with our intent. I choose, regardless of how much crap gets thrown at me today, I'm just going to go ahead and smile regardless, unless it's a death or something tragic, but, I mean, just day to day kind of stuff. But in that, when you make a choice, the universe hears it. It goes into the quantum. So I'm going to close with my prayers as usual. Yes, this is part of a ritual, if you will, but it's also a part of the ceremony that I share with you. The ceremony of enlightenment to other things. To maybe, wait a minute, I never thought about this before. You mean I got control over this stuff? Yes. Maybe not every single little nugget of it, but you can control how you feel about it. That is up to you. Other people will try to they're going to force their opinions upon you, and you can accept them or receive them. You can take them or you can tell them to go jump off a short bridge if they need to, but to the point. But for every one of us, when we realize we can make a difference simply by some of our thought patterns, it makes a big difference. Because now, instead of feeling helpless in the world, now we're hopeful because we've changed our thought pattern. Well, wait a minute, maybe today's not as bad. Well, but somebody ran and almost said, yeah, but but look at the bright side. Now, can optimism fix everything? There are sometimes you just got to be a little pessimistic. But at the same point, even as a pessimist, you can say, well, I don't know, I don't see a good outcome with that. But you can follow it up with, I don't know, I don't know if I see a good outcome with this, but I'm going to pray that there is. I'm going to hope that there is. I'm going to put forth that even though this looks like the worst situation I could ever be in, I'm going to pray that something good comes out of it. That in itself can make all the difference in the world, in the universe. So, prayer. Thank you all. Thank you, Michelle, Pamela, and everybody. Many hugs to you all. Cosmic hugs from down here in Southwest Georgia to you all. Stay warm. So I continue to pray that every single one of you will accept and receive the healings, the knowledge, and the wisdom of the universe. I continue to pray that every single one of you, your friends, your family, your neighbors, your relatives, and all of your relations will continue to accept and receive these blessings from the universe. I continue to pray that you also will continue to accept and receive, and then accept again, receive some more, and spread this wonderful message that we all have a choice in everything that we do. And our choice of how we look at things is entirely up to us. When we spread this message to each other, we can have a better day. We can accept and receive these blessings. All we need to do is open our hearts and our minds to what's already out there. So back to you as well. Thank you. All around me, happiness and light. Thank you, thank you, thank you as always. My many blessings from here from South Georgia. Stay warm, stay kind, stay compassionate. Keep that core value, because all the things that the angels are saying right now, keep your core value. So blessings, my friends, from all around the world and places. I say thank you, good evening, and as many of us will say down here in South Georgia, ha ha, TTFN, ta ta for now. So thank you, cosmic hugs from here, and continue to share the blessings.